All right, so in this video we're going to look at positive externalities. In the last video we showed the graph and the definition of a negative externality. And so what we have to do now is show the positive externality, and it's really critical that you notice how they're different. They're not just mirror images of each other, as you'll see in a bit. So first of all, the definition of a positive externality are the benefits accrued by people who are not part of the market transaction. So make sure you compare and contrast that with the definition of the negative externality. Okay? So again, definition of positive externality, the benefits accruing to people who are not part of the transaction. So in this case, we're talking about the benefits rather than the costs, which means we're talking about the demand curve. And again, traditionally, we call that demand curve the marginal benefit curve. Okay? So we're focusing on that demand curve or the marginal benefit curve, but on that supply side, we're going to assume that all costs are private. So we're basically saying there's no negative externalities. So that means the supply curve is equal to the marginal social cost, which is the same thing as the marginal private cost, or otherwise the marginal external cost is zero. So this is basically saying in production, the firm is covering all possible costs. No one outside the transaction is impacted in terms of the production of the good. The firm is covering everything. Okay, so in our non-externality world, so there are no externalities, we would interpret the demand curve, the marginal benefit curve, as capturing all the benefits occurring in a transaction, and that none of those benefits leak to those not participating in the transaction. So again, I just want to make a point. When we have a price, we have a certain number of people demanding the good at a particular price. There are other people who would like to buy the good, but there aren't enough benefits in purchasing that good that justify the purchase of the good. So those people, even though at lower prices they'll participate in the transaction, at a particular price they will not buy it, they are not part of the transaction. Okay, so let's look at an example. The market for a private security force. Under certain circumstances, people in a neighborhood will be willing to hire private security for increased protection of their property. Okay? If a certain number of people purchase the service, then the presence of the security force will convey certain benefits to people in the neighborhood who did not pay for that increased security. Let's say that the presence of a patrol throughout the neighborhood will reduce the likelihood of break-ins and make all the homes in the neighborhood, regardless of who paid for the services or not, will make the homes in the neighborhood safer and thus more valuable. You might think of it in terms of, since there's a lower likelihood of property damage occurring, that's a benefit, or because of the existence of the private security and the greater safety, the value of the house, the potential selling price of the house goes up. Okay? So again, we're saying that just the presence of the security force doing patrols not only benefits those having purchased or who are helping pay for the patrol, but it will also, benefits will also accrue to those who did not pay. Okay? So the people who paid would be represented in the original demand curve. Okay? People are paying, their benefits are measured in that demand curve. Except the thing now is, if we're talking about the people who purchased, actually expended resources to get that service, we're going to call that curve the marginal private benefit. Okay? So we're kind of paralleling the negative externality with marginal private cost. Right? So people buying the service and the people getting benefits from those services who paid for the service, their benefits are measured in the marginal private benefit. Those people not paying for the security but still enjoying the benefits. So they said, oh, I'm not going to pay. The patrol's driving around and they're watching their home values go up. These people are not participating in the transaction. These are what we call free riders. They would be represented by the marginal external benefit. Okay? So how do we figure out the marginal external benefit? Well, we could say, well, what's the increase in the price of the house, or what's the decreased likelihood of damage occurring? And we would just put that, kind of measure that, and put it above that original marginal benefit or marginal private benefit curve. Okay? So this gap here would represent the marginal external benefit. Okay? So we have people, so here's the marginal private benefit, and then at some particular level of security, but then you're measuring, you're estimating the benefits accruing to other people who are not participating in the transaction, but getting the benefits of the private security force. You add that on top. Okay? And then you sum those. You sum the marginal private benefit, the marginal external benefit, and that gives you the marginal social benefit. Again, this idea of the social benefit, much like the marginal social cost, is we want to know what are all the benefits accruing to society, regardless of who pays or not. Okay? So again, we can do the usual, like we did with the previous video on the negative externalities. We can say that marginal private benefit plus the marginal external benefit equals the marginal social benefit. And again, we could do simple algebra and say, kind of reflecting this curve right here, take that marginal social benefit, and again, we want to say this is your marginal social benefit curve, subtract the marginal private benefit, and that gives you the marginal external benefit. Take that entire marginal social benefit, subtract the marginal private benefit, and then you get the marginal external benefit. Okay? So again, that marginal social benefit would account for all the benefits accruing to society from consumption of the good, in this case, the private security, even though not all the people benefiting have actually bought the good, have actually paid for the good.